Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flawless, a music podcast. My name is Liam, and I'm here with my co-host, George.
Hello, Flawless fans.
Every episode of Flawless, a host or a guest nominates an album that they think is flawless, and we discuss how they discovered it, what they love about it, and what makes it flawless for them. We have a Facebook group. It's called Flawless Friends and Family. It's where we discuss all things music that we love and that you love, and we post in there about upcoming episodes and what albums are nominated. You can find the link in our show notes. I did remember to post this time, but George was the only person who noticed, so George and I had a conversation in the comments.
We did. We had a lovely time.
We did. But we don't have to, because you can talk to us instead. And of course, we have a Patreon. You can back us from as little as $1 a month, and you get early access to our episodes, access to our bonus episodes. There's a couple of new ones of those coming, and that warm, fuzzy feeling inside that you've helping us spread the flawless love. You can find us at patreon.com/flawlessamp. Now, even though I have done the introduction and done a swell job, if I do say so myself.
You have.
I am... Sorry?
I was just going to say I was terribly impressed after 5 years or whatever it is.
I've only said it 100 or so times.
Yeah, exactly.
I've almost got it down pat. We have a guest.
We do have a guest.
Would you like to introduce yourself, guest?
I'm the guest again. I am Tim Byrnes.
You are Tim Byrnes.
I am.
I know you.
Yeah. It's me, everyone's favourite rascal.
You are favourite rascal. No, you are one of my favourite people to go to gigs with.
Oh, shucks.
No,
Nice.
because you are a nice boy and you're not even slightly creepy.
Oh, my heart. Oh, I need to get that laminated.
The bar is nice and low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we had a very good time at Modest Mouse.
We did
Oh,
have a
nice.
good time.
And I was at Modest Mouse.
You were there too?
Yes, I was up the
Oh,
back
it's
somewhere.
Did you end up staying the whole time? Because if I
I
remember right,
own-
you bailed after Float On, I think.
Just before Float On.
Just before.
Oh, no. I was
yeah.
going to say, like, half the crowd bailed after Float On. No, we were supposed to go for the whole thing. Cloud Nothings were there, and they're like one of my favourites. But
Yeah.
when we woke up that day, I'd been having back and hand issues, and I couldn't stand the idea of standing around for 6 hours. Like, Cloud Nothings were first and Modest Mouse were last, and I wasn't super excited about anyone in between. So we skipped Cloud Nothings and came just for Modest Mouse, which was cool. Like, I got to tick them off a bucket list.
Yeah, were you planning on going earlier if Slow Dive ended up going?
I don't know. Friends of mine really liked Slow Dive, and I meant to get into them, like have a look into them before the show, but then they pulled. So
Yeah, they were the ones that sold it for me. I
Okay.
ended up interviewing Nick beforehand,
Oh, nice.
the bass player.
yeah.
I was so excited, and then I think once the interview was published, I think an hour later they announced that they're not coming because the drummer hurt his back.
Yeah.
Familiar story.
Yes, that's it.
So you say you interviewed him.
Yeah.
So why is it that you interviewed someone from Slow Dive?
Great segue, George. Well, I do a bit of writing and journalism work. That's one of my hobbies. Who can make money from that full time? But
Not me.
I write for a few different places. That particular one was for Scenester. So if you ever want to read about what's happening with Slow Dive's new album that's coming out, that's the place to go. I did ask them if it was going to be new metal influenced, and they said no. That was a stupid question. Go away. So there's that exclusive.
Nice. So it's not going Slow Dive and not going new metal.
It's a shame, really. We need more drop bass and
I guess
drop D and some DJ scratches.
I'm not going to lie. I think my favourite band is Deftones.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
You know.
They're technically new metal. That's what the kids say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not enough DJ scratching on it. I mean, maybe earlier stuff. Did they have a DJ?
They did.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There you go.
Would you like to tell us what album? Well, where can people find out about all the stuff that you're doing?
Oh, well, I am on, at this stage, I'm on TikTok and the website formerly known as Twitter. I guess it's X now.
Who knows?
Who
By the
knows?
time this comes out, it could have changed again. So
It could
be-
become just like
yeah.
that dog that he likes to post about again.
Or it could be a symbol that is not even an alphabetic symbol. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
name
like
it after.
Grimes or something. Or
Like-
his kid,
Yeah. Oh, his
Yeah.
son. Yeah.
his son.
Yeah. What was it? X, Ash,
Was there an Aeon? Or
I think there was an
something like
A.
Aeon or something.
A, and there was a number. The A and the number was something about a jet.
Yeah.
It's the only time I've really listened to Joe Rogan was just to find out how to pronounce this kid's name.
Fair enough.
Thank
And anytime anyone should
God.
listen to Joe Rogan.
Yeah. No, stick with Flawless. That's a Flawless
That's right.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yay! So,
Would you like to tell us what album you're nominating
Yes,
today?
certainly. The album that I've nominated is Pop Crimes by Rowland S Howard.
I know a girl called Johnny. She's a bullet, she's a villainess.
In my silver dress, I'm disastrous.
Combing out her long straight hair. Johnny bangs the drum.
Johnny bangs the drum.
Johnny bangs the drum. She's my narcotic lollipop. She's my narcotic lollipop.
Nice. Very low down.
very Australian.
Very Australian. Yes, we need to do more Australian. I've never said this to any of our guests before, so apologies if you're listening. We get a lot of Brisbane musicians on and Australian musicians. And I'm like, nominate some Brisbane bands, nominate some Australian bands. And they always come on and do like 2 overseas bands. I'm like, come on, people. I need like Brisbane musicians to nominate Brisbane bands. And Rowland S Howard is not a Brisbane musician by any stretch. But thank you for nominating an Australian band so that I don't have to be the only one who ever nominates Australian
I
bands.
was trying to land on an Australian band. I was going to do the Drones Gala Mill, but it's like, can I really say this one's Flawless?
We've already done a Drones album as well.
Yeah,
so
you have.
We don't double up on albums, on bands if we can help it.
I
So,
see.
We did Dom Miller, who you might actually know. From
Oh,
Reputation,
yes.
Was our very second guest or something. He was
Yeah,
on very
something like
early.
that.
Oh.
And he did.
Was it Havilah, I think?
Yes, Havilah. Yes, yeah.
Which is another fantastic album.
Yeah, I've been thinking we could fudge the rules a little bit to do another Drones album, just because George didn't get a chance to participate in a Drones
I was
conversation.
poorly.
You were poorly, so
Oh.
I'd love to introduce George to the Drones. But speaking of the Drones, similar style and vibe to
Very.
Rowland S Howard here.
Yeah.
So,
Like, I think I heard the Drones before I heard Rowland S Howard. And yeah, especially the guitar style is
Yeah.
it's a guitar style I love. I've always thought of it as very apocalyptic.
yeah,
Like, the very first Drone song I remember hearing was Jezebel from Gala Mill, which is all about nuclear bomb testings out in the middle of Australia. And the guitars fit that vibe very well. And that guitar sound is very much the pioneer, the father of that sound,
Yeah.
Rowland S Howard.
yeah, cool. So, Pop Crimes, 2009 album by Australian musician Rowland S Howard, released on 16th of October, 10 years after his previous album, Teenage Snuff Film. So he took a long time between drinks, but he'd obviously been working with lots of bands in between, doing lots of other stuff.
And not so much drinks, lots of heroin.
Lots of heroin, yes,
Loads.
which we will talk about. It was released in the US by Fat Possum Records and then Mute Records in Europe and Bloodlines in Australia. So,
Oh, I didn't realize it was a mutant fat possum.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
Fat Possum, Dinosaur Jr., Black Keys, Walkman, Iggy Pop.
yeah, definitely.
I knew of them first from...
Liberation, Vance Joy was the only person I'd heard of.
Who's that?
Vance Joy.
Oh, yes. On Liberation. Yeah. Oh, yes, I know Liberation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really? Vance Joy's on Liberation?
At some point.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. You've got Vance Joy and you've got Rowland S Howard on Liberation.
Two
Wow,
buddies who we
wee.
heard them. Yeah. So tell us how you got introduced to Rowland S Howard.
Well, I guess I knew of him before this album as he's most famous as the guitarist in The Birthday Party, which was a very early Nick Cave band.
Birthday
Yeah.
to
No.
It was a
We'll get
terrible
sued.
birthday party, that one.
The copyright on that song
Yeah.
is like $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's the budget gone.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have to cut this episode early.
Don't sue us. There's literally nothing to sue us.
But yeah, he was always basically the sideman to Nick Cave. For, the Boys Next Door, the Birthday Party. He wrote the first big hit, Shivers, which
Yeah.
was the Boy Next Door's first big hit. But then, yeah, sort of disappeared. I wasn't really aware of him until I think the title track from this album came up, of all places, on Triple J,
Okay.
just before it was released. That was the first place I ever heard that song or any Rowland S Howard solo material, and that bass line just grabbed me. It
Yeah.
is so good. Just
Yeah.
has vibes.
Yeah,
That's what the kids are into.
We'll come back to it a bit, but the bass on this album, a couple of times I forgot that he was a guitarist by nature. I was like, he must have been like Nick Cave's bass player, right? Because he loves the bass so much on this album. It's always so elevated and doing such important stuff. That, yeah, a couple of times I was like, did he play guitar or did he play bass? And I have to look up, oh no, he was a guitarist for those bands, but he just loves the bass. So it was really cool.
It's a great instrument.
Yeah. So you heard that song, you go out and get the album sort of straight away.
Pretty much, yeah. As soon as it was released, I think it was in a JB Hi-Fi. That was the only place you could really get records up in Townsville at the time. That's where I'm originally from. Well, I grew up in a town south of there, Sugarcane. Went to uni in Townsville and lived there for quite a bit of time. And the only place to get records was JB Hi-Fi.
Yeah.
And yeah, as soon as I saw it there, I was like, I've got to listen to the rest of this. And it was a perfect choice.
Yeah. So did you go back and listen to Teenage Snuff Film? His other one?
I did later on. Just as good, but I think I like Pop Grinds more so.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. I guess it's probably just because it's the first one I heard.
Yeah.
But
like that happens.
Yeah, and it's
You
also
can have an emotional attachment to the first album.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
exactly. Yeah, both are fantastic albums. Like
Yeah.
similar bass sort of sounds as well.
Yep.
I think the same bass player. I think
Okay.
JP Shiloh. I think.
Yep. JP Shiloh, well, he was on this one. So
Yeah.
yep. George,
Hello.
before the name Rowland S Howard, which we may keep saying Rowland S Howard all the way through, we may shorten it, who knows, was dropped in the chat. Had you heard of the man or his music?
I had not heard of Rowland S Howard. I instinctively thought Ron Howard and was thrown a curveball. So I listened to it and I was like, that's not Ron Howard. But yeah. So
if only.
But then when I did some research, obviously I'd heard of the birthday party and Nick Cave. So yes. And so but I had never heard his name before because I wasn't listening to Triple J in 2009 because I didn't live
To be
here.
fair, he didn't appear regularly.
No,
I think that
I
was
don't
probably
think he
the
would have been
only
huge
time he
on-
would have
yeah,
appeared, I'd say.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
He wasn't big on Triple J, no. It would have been a rare instance that his
I think at the
songs got
time,
picked
the
up.
big stuff would have been like Art versus Science,
Yeah,
Wolf
yeah.
Mother.
And I think even, by this stage had Kingsmill taken over and starting to do hip-hop stuff as well. Like it.
Yeah, I think
there
they
was
were slowly starting to introduce
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
hip hop in there. So this is well before pop started appearing, well before
Yeah.
anyone was crying for Taylor Swift to be on Hottest 100.
Crying for it.
Oh, it was crazy.
It
It
was
was,
I know, but Shake It Off is worth it. So. Liam,
Hello.
I'm assuming you had definitely heard of Rowland S. Howard.
I'd heard of him. I hadn't. I know, and I think I was in the same position as you, knowing he was attached to Nick Cave, and had been playing with Nick Cave. I knew of him. I'd heard lots of people talk about him, and I knew he'd passed away, but I don't think I'd ever heard a song by him. And like looking at the people that he worked with, even after he sort of parted ways with Nick Cave and his side of things, like he's done a lot of stuff with people who I have listened to. But I don't think I couldn't name a song, and I don't think I'd heard any of his stuff until I sat down and heard this album, which is probably a bit of a gap for me. And I can tell you now is a gap for me because it's, having listened to this, I'm like, man, I wish I had. It was annoying and a little sad.
Yeah, well, it is a little sad because he did end up dying of cancer when he was 50, and he had imbibed in illicit substances for what I assume is the majority of his adult life.
oh, yeah.
at
Apparently,
least. So, if just in case anyone thinks we're telling tales out of turn, he was completely open and unabashed drug, heroin, alcoholic user. Like he was the full tilt all the way through.
And sings about it.
Yes, yeah,
too.
100%. So we're not, trying to impugn someone after they've gone or anything like that. Like this is known facts about him.
Yeah.
like I think Nick Cave and Roland got into heroin at the same time. I think it was in St Kilda or somewhere like that.
Yep.
King's Cross, I think was the area for it. Definitely in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Like there's a great.
Sounds like a Melbourne thing.
It seems like, heroin seems to be a Melbourne thing, especially, I don't know, 80s and 90s for some reason.
Yeah, because
Maybe,
they went over to Europe because there's a lot of stuff in his history around that Nick Cave and him and the band went over to Europe and were trying to do stuff over in Europe, but they hated it because they were surrounded by European bands and they hated them all, and it was all just this weird thing. So Yeah.
I'm taking it personally.
You should, yeah. He didn't like any of your bands, George.
Yeah,
then
but Nick Cave ended up living in Brighton, which is where I'm from.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, he had a bit of a falling out. So on this album, we've got Rowland S Howard, Mick Harvey on the drums and organ, and JP Shiloh, like we talked about. Mick Harvey was also in Birthday Party and a lot of Nick Cave things, and he sort of Howard and Nick Cave had a bit of a falling out towards the end of the Birthday Party. There was some stuff I was reading about. Yeah, Howard was writing stuff, and Nick Cave was like, I don't want to use his stuff anymore. I want to be able to write everything myself. And so they had a bit of a falling out after that. And I read a few interviews where Howard said like they talked, but there was still that animosity all the way through. But then Mick Harvey has managed to stay good friends with both of them. So he worked on both of Howard's solo albums. He still works with Nick Cave a lot. So he's sort of like that bridge between them, which is really cool.
Oh,
The go-between.
Yes.
that's nice.
Speaking of St Kilda, 24th of April 2013, Port Phillip Council approved the proposal to name a St Kilda Laneway Rowland S Howard Lane to honour Howard's contribution to the St Kilda music scene.
Oh,
That's
Which is
nice.
awesome. Yeah.
it's great to have a place. I know Ed Cooper's got a park somewhere in Brisbane. I'm trying to think of where.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure where it is either.
Yeah. I'm yet to grace it.
We also have a guest vocalist on this album.
Yes.
On track 1,
Yeah,
Janine
she's-
Standish.
She has a big intro, like first track of the album, cool, and then she's done.
Yeah,
Oh.
she's out.
Basically, the
where'd
song's
she go?
So
about
she's
her,
from-
basically.
Yes,
She's
yeah.
from HTRK.
Hate
Yeah,
rock.
Hate
That's-
rock.
Kate Rock, yeah. And Roland produced their debut album.
Yeah.
So that's where their lines meet.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, yes, so I had no idea what to expect.
First impressions. What did you
so
what did you
first
think of the
impressions-
album as a whole? We don't have to do a deep dive straight into it, but what
No,
did you think of the
so-
album as a whole?
I put it on, and I know a girl called Johnny was obviously the first track, and the drums and organ were. I was like, yeah, colour me interested.
Yeah.
And then the vocals sounded Cohen-esque, and I was like, okay. And then Janine comes in and sounds like Amanda Palmer,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay.
I had her as the Patti Smith.
Patti
but-
Smith.
Yeah,
Yeah, Amanda
okay.
Palmer was
Yeah, I
as
wouldn't
well,
have
yeah.
thought Amanda Palmer, but yeah, I mean, it
It just-
fits.
Just that kind, just the way of the half-spoken, half-sung kind of
So
aspect. So, and I was like, I did not know what to expect. And because I hadn't done a deep dive yet, everything about it, including the lyrics that I could hear, I thought it was from the late 80s. And I was like, oh, okay, so we've got some like late 80s, you know, when Cohen brought out his albums in the 80s and stuff. And I was just like, oh, okay, we've got some late 80s and some American guy, an American woman singing like in a band. That's cool. And then I actually read up on him and went, oh, okay, you're Australian.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. And she's on one song, and I wasn't expecting that either. So first impressions was it was very Leonard Cohen, like that with the slow drawl,
Yeah.
spoken thing, and there was lots of drugs. So there was lots of elements of drugs, and it was really blatant, like out there, like as well, like comparing her to like. Was it like a methadone lolly or something like that?
She's my narcotic lollipop.
Narcotic
Is one of my
lollipop.
favorite lines from that for the whole album, and he just whips it out there in that first song. I was like, yeah. So when she's doing little like different things, he's just doing that over and over, which is so cool.
Yeah. So there we go. So Liam, first
Yeah.
impressions.
Well, so this felt super familiar to me, like an awesome way. Like I loved this right from the start. Like we knew, so we've done Leonard Cohen album, the one he recorded just before he died, which I can't remember.
Oh,
what the
You
album
Want It
was
Darker?
called. Yes, that's it. So we've done that. And just it put me in that mindset. And then like David Bowie when he did Black Star, and you
Yeah.
listen, and then he died straight after. And you listen to it, and you're like, this feels like a guy, like that feels like a guy who knows. No one else knew at the time, but that felt like that David Bowie was a guy who knew this is my last document that I give to the world. And then the Leonard Cohen one was the same. And then I'm listening to this thinking, oh yeah, it's kind of the same, but there's something else there that I don't quite understand. And then I read the interviews, and it wasn't that he knew he was going to die. He was hoping he would live.
He was waiting for a liver transplant, I
Yeah,
believe,
he was
at the
waiting
time.
for a liver
Yeah.
transplant. He was hoping, and I think he'd realized at the point that all the drugs and everything had fucked him up, almost to the point where he'd probably given them up. I assume if he's waiting for a transplant, he can't still be on drugs and alcohol because that would be a requirement.
It was not long before, I think, maybe a few years beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, he was in a really good place at the time he was recording
that
it.
messed me up.
Yeah.
Because then you look at the album cover, and it's just this guy's face who's just so sad
Gaunt.
and just filled with sorrow and gaunt from drug use. And you just like, this document, this album that he's created is this brilliant thing. But then you find out he actually had hope and he wanted to live. And that just messed me up. You're like, oh, God, like just... Yeah, that made it like it.
Cut in his prime.
That's what I was missing from that's like the album is the document of someone who's lived a rough life and probably knows that that's where they're headed. But there's also that tinge of, but I still want to hold on to it, and I'm still holding on to it. And then the fact that he couldn't and died like 9 months after it came out is just that broke me a little bit.
And he was sad that he wasn't well enough to tour the album.
Yes, yeah.
I wish. I know, I think a few years before he did this album, I only just discovered this recently via Facebook. I think he did like a 2-night stand at Rick's as well.
Oh, wow.
nice.
I was like, that would have been amazing to see.
So Mick Harvey said in an interview, there was a groundswell of interest and it jolted him into action. So he put this album out and he's like, people loved it. And they were like, yeah, I could tour again. But he just never got healthy enough to do it. He said he was so ready for it. He was really sick, but he thought he was going to get out of the hospital. And then, in his final moments, he was quoted as saying, I've lost so much of my life. It's been wasted, thrown away. And I'm just like, fuck.
Ouch.
Like that, like this is the stuff that they should be showing to those, like, I'm not going to get all preachy about drug use or anything, but this is the stuff they should be showing to people who are starting to get into that space. Is like, this is what, the greatest minds of a generation, the greatest musicians of a generation just get taken from us too early. And it was,
Because it was met with 4-star reviews on AllMusic, Enemy, Record Collector, and Pop Matters.
Yeah. Just in case anyone isn't already crying too, at the time, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs had invited him to support them on a tour, but he was too ill. And they said, we were driving in Tasmania listening to the radio when they played a Rowland Howard song, and then they played another, and we all knew what had happened, and we wept the rest of the journey.
Oh, wow.
It's like, Jesus.
Yeah, that makes... Well, I didn't realise the Yeah Yeah Yeahs were... I mean, it makes sense because Nick Zinner's...
there's so many...
just his dress sense and his guitar style is very Rowland S Howard.
Yeah, there's so many bands. I didn't get a chance to do all the stuff, but like, there's so many different bands that have quoted him as like having seen him in those early stages, and they lots of stuff from a lot of range. I'll see if I can find a few of them, but it was just I mentioned this on the Facebook group last night. I was like, we can do an episode if I can stop bawling my eyes out.
Yeah, but we are also celebrating
We will
them.
we will do our best to celebrate him as well. Yes.
This is true. So, is there a particular track that you wanted to start us with, Tim?
Well, I guess I'd like to start with Shut Me Down,
Nice.
which is a rough song. It's devastating. I learned, so there's a really good documentary about him, directed by Richard Lowenstein, who did Dogs in Space. That's the film starring Michael Hutchence, and it's about the little band scene in Melbourne. Fantastic movie. I've seen one of the bands from that little band scene, Primitive Calculators. If you love noise and electronics, totally worth it.
Nice.
I think their last album is called The World Is Fucked, which is
True.
sums it up.
100%.
Topical.
You could release that in
Cannot
any,
disagree.
any given year.
Then he also did a really good documentary about Michael Hutchence called Mystify, and he also did this really great doco about Roland called Autoluminescence, which is named after a song from Teenage Snuff Film.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that You Shut Me Down is it's actually a really old song for him.
Okay.
It's he wrote it, I think, in the 80s. He was still in England. So I think he was still with the Birthday Party, or it was towards the end of it.
Yeah.
He was with who was he dating at the time? Genevieve, I think her name is. She's in These Immortal Souls, which
Okay.
is one of his later bands in the 80s and 90s. She played keys, and she dropped him, and she wandered out, and that night he wrote this song.
Yeah.
And it's devastating.
Like
It's
just all those sorts of lost love songs are devastating in their own way, but the inflection he puts on the voice of "I miss you so much," just that call and repeated refrain is just like the heartbreaker. It just makes me like my heart's not broken right now, but I'm listening to it going, my heart's breaking just listening to it.
Oh, like empathy.
Yeah, just like you can't help but feel grabbed by that vocal intonation that he does, which is so cool.
It just sounds, very desperate.
Yeah.
And some of the lyrics in there are amazing. Like, the one that always grabbed me was "I'm standing in a suit as ragged as my nerves."
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah, nice.
"A night so deep that I could almost trip and drown," which is just such great evocative lyrics.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
He was long a lyricist, like, even though his role in the Birthday Party was basically a guitarist. I think one of the things that caused a lot of tension, as you mentioned, was that, he wanted to put more songs in the albums.
Yeah.
He'd maybe get one, maybe.
So he was Ringo.
Yeah, he was Ringo. Well, he wrote his own songs. I don't think Ringo wrote his own songs.
No, he did. That was the
Did he?
problem.
Did he write
He wrote like Yellow Submarine.
and
Octopus's
Octopus?
Garden.
He wrote Octopus's Garden.
That's why, he used to just drop acid, write a song, and they'd go, "Lols, put it on the album." Which is why, no offense to Ringo, but there are no flawless Beatles albums.
No, I mean, honestly, I love those songs. They're just perfect children's songs
Yeah.
for me. But when you put it on a Beatles album, it's like, what the fuck is this?
Exactly. So anyway, in Shut Me Down, it's really slinky guitar, and then there's like this one long string note, and his vocals are just drawls.
Yeah.
Like he perfects the drawl, which I aim to do one day.
Yeah.
But I'm a bit too perky.
Yeah.
But it lifts with the organ melody, and then the vocals just like drop it straight back down again.
Yeah.
And it's just like the organ's like, come on, lift up, dude, lift
Yeah.
up. And he's like,
No.
I'm down here,
Get
and I'm
fucked.
going to stay. Yeah. So pass me the pipe.
Yeah. No.
So,
Shut Me Down leads into one of two covers on the album. So I was going to ask you, George.
yeah.
I assume you listened to it before you did any research into it.
Yeah.
Did you know these two songs were covers? Did it feel like they were covers?
Life's What You Make It, I know.
Did you know? Okay, so there's
I
the
know
problem
that.
there. So,
So I knew that was a cover because it was
Right.
Talk Talk from the
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
And they're a British band.
Yeah.
So I knew that song.
Yeah.
And I also know it from the Placebo cover
Right.
that was brought out at some point in the.
Did
2000.
Placebo do a cover?
Placebo did a cover. Yeah. It's a corker. It's
Right.
really
I mean,
good.
they did. I mean,
Placebo do
what?
good covers.
Yeah. I mean, running up that hill. Wow.
Yeah, and they cover Bowie, and they actually didn't butcher it. So
Oh,
yeah,
congratulations.
I know. So which was the other? Was it Wayward Man?
No, that's an original. It's Nothing.
Nothing. The
Nothing.
blues.
Which is
Yes,
a
it's
Townsend
Van
Zandt
song.
Yeah.
So this one, I love this. I really like this cover because I was like, I didn't know it was a cover. First of all, it fits perfectly into his style.
Which one?
Life's What You Make It.
That's what you make
Yeah,
it.
didn't know it was a cover when I was listening to the album the first few times. Saw it at the Wikipedia. Oh, that's a cover. Listened to the original, and that's kind of like a 80s, almost Dire Straits guitar pop-esque. Not quite to that level, but almost there. And then he's grabbed it, dirged the hell out of the guitars, slowed it right down, because then it goes into it's 6 minutes 42.
Yeah.
And just like made it this, like just twisted the intent of the song. Like Life's What You Make It as a pop 80s song, like, hey, you can make it great. And then Life's What You Make It as this dirge of like, you fucked like if your life's fucked, it's because you fucked it up. It's just I love
He's
the
basically-
pivot
It's
of it.
very sarcastic.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Celebrate it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh, that's
He's
Jesus.
definitely he reversed it,
Yeah.
and turned it into like, look at me, like look at the cover of my fucking album,
Yeah.
Life's What You Make It, and he's got like popped skin and like as we talked about gaunt and everything, and he's like been smacked up for years, and he's like dying but hopeful, but
Yeah.
obviously he's like turning the song on himself. Like it's probably the most introspective track on the album, and he didn't write it,
No.
which is what's funny about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I knew it was a cover.
He talked about it in an interview. He said, I like the idea of this apocalyptic version of Life's What You Make It. I guess you could say that it appealed to me. So yeah, so he heard this, like, what if I could like run this into the ground?
Yeah, I'd like to know why he decided that this was the song. This is the
Yeah.
song that I want to do. Because, Talk. They're not, I mean,
I
towards
never
the...
heard of them or that song.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
the
okay.
last two
Yeah.
albums were they originated post-rock, pretty
Okay.
much. Was
Well, they
it
were
Garden of
kinda-
Eden?
They
And
were kind of new wavy.
Yeah.
like
yeah.
they did It's My Life. That was a song I
Yeah.
always knew beforehand, which is... I knew of it because it was a No Doubts cover as well.
Right.
And then Such a Shame, which is a great song. But yeah, it's not as apocalyptic as Rowland S Howard.
No,
It's
no, it's
they've-
a bit more 80s, new wave sort of stuff was exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. But Pop Crimes,
Yeah, so
7 minutes 23.
yeah, so back to back. So we've got a couple of shorter, not as long songs as these two, but then 3 and 4 just banging out 2 7-minute songs, which is really cool.
So Pop Crimes, I think we mentioned earlier, lovely bass.
Oh, beautiful bass all the way through it.
Oh yeah, and little drum lifts.
Yeah,
He plays a solo. The intro is nearly a minute 10.
it's 90 seconds. It's over
Yeah.
90 seconds of an intro before the actual proper gets
Right.
into it.
And he references Catholicism a lot because he's faced with death.
Yeah,
Right, so
Yeah.
he references the Catholic Church in about 3 tracks, and in here he says,
The Catholic Church can't verify that there's a single soul in hell. It's just a wasteland of adversity, devoid of all but the sound of waiting bells from the...
Lyric Buddies.
Lyric Buddies.
Yeah, I got that one.
And then solos, bass line.
Yeah,
the one that always stuck out for me was, "Are you Stalin's secret daughter? Did you murder history?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So,
So I sometimes forget to do it, but every now and again, I think if there's I look for a lyric that I would tattoo on myself of like, even though it's like if I've got no real connection to the band, but I'd love a wasteland of adversity. That would like just tattoo it on your shoulder somewhere. That would be so cool.
you're so nice.
I know. So, but it's just I love that. Like it's just it never like for a 7.5 minute song, it never feels like okay, get over it. Wrap it up. It should be 4 minutes. It's just. Yeah, just the way he performs it and the vocal on the chorus where he's just like repeating that. It's just a pop crime. It's just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can talk about the other cover because coming out of that we do Townes Van Zandt song.
Yeah, tell them I'm fine and I'm using nothing.
Yeah,
Like, well, obviously at this point he is using nothing.
yeah,
But he found a song to replicate his life.
yeah. So similar again. So I don't know if you'd heard the original, but I listened to the original. It's like this one man and a guitar, pure country folk.
Yeah.
Sort of stuff. And again, this time instead of like it's up, I'm using hands. This is good for a podcast. Instead of it's high and then he brings it down. This one's like quite low and lo-fi, and he turgens it up again. He swamps it up, but that brings it up a little bit. Like he makes it a bigger piece rather than just a guy with a guitar, which is really cool.
Yeah, and he's obviously picked it because there's lots of loss in this album, and in it it's like just when you leave nothing.
Yeah,
Like as if to say, like I need every piece of you to be gone.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go, just fucking go. And it kind of just fits.
And it's a kind of a perfect artist for that sort of thing. Townes Van Zandt is a bleak guy.
Yeah.
Or was, R.I.P. He was, one song I love of his is called Waiting Round to Die, which is great. Another one's called Lungs, which is about his lungs collapsing because a mine's falling in. And he lived a rough life as well. He was another guy that drank himself and was lost potential. I think he was going to record an album with Lee Ronaldo from Snottonic Youth at one stage.
Okay.
I think it was someone that was very odd and out of place, but it died before that happened. But Yeah, his stuff is amazing, especially when it's just him and a guitar. It's like he did a few albums that were very Nashville country, where it's very bright and made for pop radio.
Okay.
But the stuff where it's just him and his guitar, I think there's a self-titled album that's amazing, and a few others in there. It's just wow. The guy knew his way. I mean, it's just that there was a lot of bottles in the way.
We forgot to ask you at the start. Did you ever see Rowland Howard live?
No, I saw a lot of bands that sort of orbited him. I've seen Hate Rock twice.
Oh, nice.
Who are great. It's just punishing because they love their feedback and smoke machines. So if you're asthmatic, don't. If you're sensitive to feedback, they love it.
Is it like watching My Bloody Valentine?
No, it's not as apocalyptic. They've got the Holocaust section, if I remember right, when they do You Made Me Realize.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. It's very piercing.
Right.
Because it's weird with Hate Rock because they're very minimalist.
Yeah.
Like they, as said, Rowland S Howard produced their first album, but their other albums are very different to that. I think they've since done like a country-influenced album, but it's via Hate Rock.
Because I was having a bit of a read about them. Like there's like two of them at the center, and when he produced the album, there was like lots of them, but then they've slowly gotten down to just the two of them.
So it was
now.
originally a trio. There was, I think it was Sean that was on bass. He also passed away, overdosed on heroin, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh my
Melbourne,
God.
what can you
This
do?
is a very bleak episode.
Yeah, it's just death everywhere.
Yeah.
Don't worry, there's still more songs.
Yeah.
I know we have Ave Maria.
Yes.
Well, let's do Ave Maria.
That's a pining song, isn't it? It's simple guitar and drums, but now it seems like we're talking about the ex-wife. And so it lifts briefly with solo and organ, and then it just drops.
Yeah.
And it has a slow outro, so it's like 4 minutes. And Ave Maria is something that people would usually have at their funeral.
Yes.
So I was just like, okay, dude knew he was on his way out. So he's like got all these references again to Catholicism. So there we go. That's that song for me.
Yeah.
That's probably why it hit me as well, because I was raised Catholic, and so I'm familiar with that world. It's very death obsessed. It's 5-year-old, you see this, oh man, a Jesus in a Catholic church on the crucifix. It's way gorier than what you see at other places. It is something else.
So there were 2 sections of this lyrics that I wanted to call attention to. I'll only drop in the second one, but the first part is where he says, "History led her to me, each footstep cut in memory, clad in a dress of silver grey, she walked into our wedding day." And then at the end of the song,
For though my crimes remain unnamed, all my treasons, all my shames, later you would rightly say we didn't dance upon our wedding day.
Oh,
I don't know how you don't break. That doesn't just break your heart. It's just like you said, on the verge of, like, it would be heartbreaking for any vocalist, but then when you know it's like someone who's like these, he knows he's putting these songs, and this will be the last collection of songs that he probably gets to put together.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff that he wants to put out into the world. It was interesting what you said about the album is quite busy. There's lots of pieces going on, quite a lot. But in the interviews that I read, he said he didn't like touring with a full band behind him. He actually just liked getting up on stage and playing songs with one person and a guitar.
Yeah,
which would have been a really interesting. I think I would have loved to see a full band play this full album, but I also think just to have seen him and his guitar playing whatever songs he has and he wants to play some of this, some or whatever, would be an amazing experience.
I know there's a few clips from there was some show from the ABC way back in the 90s, I think, where he filmed himself playing some songs from Teenage Snuff Film, full band. So Mick Harvey was there on the drums, JP Shiloh on the bass, and I think Warren Ellis might have been on violin.
Oh,
I
nice.
think.
Yeah.
And they did what did they do? Exit Everything, which is just an incredible song from that teenage snuff film. Like if you love the bass and pop crimes, you'll go nuts for Exit Everything.
Yeah.
He also does a cover of White Wedding, the Billy Idol song.
Yeah.
And he does a solo version of Shivers, a song that pretty much like brought him into the spotlight in the first place.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think the interviews I read, he said he doesn't really like Shivers anymore.
Yeah,
like it got because he wrote it when he was 16.
Yeah.
And for him, it's like, that's, I was a stupid 16-year-old. Why would anyone love a song that I wrote when I was 16?
It's interesting with that because they talk about that also Luminescent, that documentary, and they mention that like he was originally meant to sing it. Like he had recorded a version of it with one of his early bands. I can't remember what they were called. And then he was sort of brought into the fold of the Boys Next Door with Nick Cave. I think halfway through recording their first album, Door Door. So the first half is very new wavy sort of thing. Second half with Rowland is very noisy. Shivers is on there, and it's very different to the version that he originally recorded. It's like it sounds like a young boy with a broken heart, really pining for someone.
Yeah.
But apparently the real intention behind it was he was actually mocking these kids that are really love struck. It's like,
Like
I'm
16
so
years old.
brokenhearted I could die.
Yeah.
I had no idea until I saw this documentary. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Just looking back at it, and it's that way he sings it in this these live performances. It's just so much I don't know, just venom in his voice. Along with that drawl.
He does. He's almost spitting.
Yeah, pretty much.
So things between him and Nick Cave must have come good eventually because Nick Cave booked him on the All Tomorrow's Parties tour in 2009.
I went to
when
that.
Nick Cave was curating it.
I didn't see the Roland one. I went to the one at River Stage.
Right, this was in Sydney. I think I saw.
I went to I think they had. I remember Nick Cave. It was around the time of Dig Lazarus Dig, I think, was the album.
Yep.
And they had, who else did they have on the lineup? They had Spiritualized, who are amazing.
Nice.
The Saints.
Oh yeah.
So Ed Cooper and Chris Bailey. I can't remember if the bass and drums were the same. I think maybe only one of them were.
Okay.
I think. I can't remember who else, but incredible thing. I would have been if Rowland was there. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, my young bones.
Yeah. So the according to Setlist FM, the last 4 shows I just wanted to say because it was so very Australian. The last 4 shows he played were the Oxford Art Factory in Sydney, Prince of Wales in Melbourne, which is actually in St Kilda, so that's his home, Home Bake, and then the North Coast Social Club in Melbourne. So just 4 iconic Australian venues and concerts. So he went out.
This is the sound of it going over my head.
Yeah. Just absolute Australian iconic venues and Sydney and Melbourne venues, and then Home Bake, which is an all-Australian festival.
Oh God.
So cool.
When did that finish up? That must have been not long after.
That was 2009. So yeah, I don't think it lasted much longer after that.
Yeah,
one, so.
no. R.I.P. So much more death.
Yes. Any other stuff? We're probably running towards the end. Any other stuff, George, that you want to cover?
There is cool sliding on the electric guitar in the Golden Native Blood.
Oh.
Yeah. But then still driven by drum and bass. Another one is like really drum and bass. But then the cool little flicks. Lots of feedback. There's lots of feedback in their guitar. Roland really loves his feedback throughout this whole album.
And Catholic girls with Uzis.
Yeah.
More Catholics.
And then he slows down the tempo for the chorus, which is...
Worst of all possible worlds in this planet of perpetual sorrows, I found the best of all possible girls. She's pure and white and bright as tomorrow.
This is awesome.
Because, I know in that documentary, Autoluminescent, it talked about how he was very much in love at the time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately. I mean, it's nice to have love in your life. But, it was... I know she was quite a bit younger than him.
Okay.
I want to say late 20s, early 30s. I can't remember what her name is, but
Right.
it's just the way they talk about each other and all the footage of them together. It was just so beautiful.
Nice.
So it was nice to see that, things were. I mean, he didn't die. Like, even though he feels like he wasted his life, at least, he did have some happiness towards the end. He was loved by a lady and lots of people. Everyone was just rooting for him. It was really nice.
Awesome.
Anything else, George?
No, I think we've covered.
Cool. One thing we forgot to talk about in I Know a Girl Called Johnny, where they talk about, she says, I'm an alchemist. I won't drop this in. I'm an alchemist in my astronaut's dress, changing all the girls into boys. So just like that real old school gender bending punk sort of attitude.
That rebel David Bowie sort of thing.
That's it. Yeah. 100%, but built into this retro sort of love song with, just really cool. This is such a great opener. It was like really grabs you right from the start.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. If there's nothing else you wanted to cover, did you want to give us your final pitch for why Rowland S Howard Pop Crimes is a flawless album?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I was trying to think of a pitch for this. Basically, it's my pitch is trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me. I feel like high fidelity sort of thing. Just trust me.
Yeah.
Final pitch.
Cool. It's a short one. Keep them brief. We love it. George, final thoughts and a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Cool. So I think we covered when I blind listened, it was like the 80s Cohen-esque kind of thing. So vocals being off key and sometimes fitting is something I am on board with. So I was brought up on Cohen and Pavement. And they taught me that you don't need to be in tune. And and that's okay.
Get rid of your guitar tuners, gang.
Yeah, so it's overrated. So I can see why he is an Australian icon, and I respect his working status as that. And listening to it, it's a short album. It's like 8 tracks with a couple of long songs in there. The problem I had with it, though, was I took him lyrically at face value and his self-deprecation with the whole opium-esque vibe and then wondering why this woman has gone. I was thinking, it's right there, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's really fucking clear to me.
It's hanging out of your arm, mate.
You've got a song called Wayward Man. Like, you're declaring yourself as like a rock star that is philandering and you're drugged up all the time. And so I felt it was really confronting for me as a woman that has left men in the past against their wishes. Like, it felt like an attack on me as opposed to being tongue-in-cheek. It felt vitriolic. And knowing that it was the last thing that he was producing and he was hopeful, it didn't translate into the album. It made me feel just quite sad that so much of the content was pushing towards was so anti this figure of a person and making this demonic woman. So I couldn't make it flawless because it was too confronting for me lyrically, and having the Talk cover, I didn't see why that was on there. Like, I can understand like that, but because I know the original, and when I heard it, I was like, no, if this is your last album, you should be putting yourself out there 100%. There shouldn't be a cover because it should be your voice, your words. So it's not a flawless from my perspective, though I can appreciate it. So I'm sorry, Tim. But so I didn't trust you.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
If you'd have said that when I was listening, then, or if I'd have known some of it was tongue in cheek, but no, it was too confronting for me.
It's okay. You just broken my trust, is all.
Yeah, I have it. Liam,
hello.
Over to you.
Yeah. So, just like I said, I was really struck by this album and really annoyed that I didn't know him better at the time and listened to his stuff at the time when it came out, because it almost feels like definitely very similar style to Nick Cave. I keep making sure I don't say Nick Cage. Nick Cave.
Oh, if only it was Nick Cage.
Yeah. But almost like a more accessible version of Nick Cave, like not quite down in the weeds as Nick Cave can get.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool. Like I think that's one of the things that prevents people from really getting Nick Cave is like he's quite aloof, whereas I think this was a bit more connected. So all these beautiful dark murder tales. He's got that sneering vocals, an amazing voice. Loves to have the bass line high in the mix, like we've said, which is really awesome. I love that the album gives the instruments a chance to flourish. There's a lot of songs on here where he sings for a bit, and it's got that amazing voice. So you could be forgiven for like just singing a lot, but he doesn't do that because I think he feels himself as much a performer as he is a singer, an instrumentalist as he is a singer. So he likes to give that space and have the instruments take the lead, not solos, but just have them in that space, which is really cool. These dark Australian soundscapes, we've done albums who have a similar vein. So I think Mess Hall and Kid Sam are two bands that we've covered, who I think's probably got a lot out of Rowland S Howard. So you talked about how he's an iconic figure. He's not well known by the public, definitely. I think he's definitely like a band's band kind of guy. Like all the bands know about him. They'll talk about how they're influenced by him, even if the public doesn't.
That makes a lot of
which
sense.
I really love. So yeah, like reading all the interviews with him, I was really enjoying it. Like I said, 8 songs, 38 minutes. I really liked it. Normally we talk about the covers, but the fact that when I listened to the album through, I didn't even know they were covers meant for me like we talk about how sometimes covers can stick out, but they didn't stick out for me because I didn't even know they were covers until I actually listened to them, read the entries. So for me, I love this album, and I'd say it was flawless.
Ha!
So
He trusts me.
yeah, I do trust you.
You need more work to
Trust
do.
you too.
I know, I'm sorry.
So,
Maybe I'm just anti-Australia.
yeah,
It
I
must
think
be,
that's the
yes.
truth.
It's that
something like that.
British hoity-toity.
It's colonialism.
Yeah, just because it wasn't Britpop, you're like, nah, not having this.
No, it's English folk. Sorry.
English folk.
That's me.
So thank you very much for bringing along an album. I really enjoyed it. George couldn't give it flawless, but we'll
Boo!
No booing. There's no booing. We want to thank everyone for listening. We have Facebook, Twitter, X, Threads, whatever it is, by the time you hear this, and Instagram. We are Flawless AMP on all of those, and you can join the conversation and share or like our posts or give us a rating. Every little bit helps us find more music lovers like you. As mentioned, we also have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/flawlessamp. So if you'd like to check it out and back us, please check that out. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.